And come on down. If you just hearing in, it's right in Northfield on Tilton Road 900. Come see us.
Very, very good, Frank. How you doing, guys? We're coming to you guys today from the world famous Capri Restaurant here in Northfield. And Frank said we have a Ask the Contractor Day after we do the podcast. We have we're gonna be here from 11 to 2, and we have free water ice, free pretzels, and one free slice of pizza till from 11 to 2. So come on down and join us. Rocco would love to have everybody, and we have all kinds of food down here. We're going to do a lot of eating today. Today we're going to have a very good show coming towards you guys. We're going to be touching base on roofs, what you guys can expect to get on roofs if you guys need roofs. And then also we're going to be talking about finish work with the painting. Okay, so first, and then we got our toolbox tips of the day at the very end of the program. So right now we're going to start with roofs. So if you're looking to get a roof done, okay, what should you be looking for? Number one, you have to watch when a contractor comes out and they say, okay, you need a new roof. I see nail bleeds. Once you start seeing nail bleeds on your roof, you normally, rule of thumb, you probably got 2 to 3 years left of your shingle. Once the nail bleeds start coming, so if somebody comes out and tells you you got to get your roof done right away, you got nail bleeds. That's not true. Okay, you have a couple of years from when the nail bleeds start. Um, the number one thing you need to know before you do the roof, if you need a roof, is how many layers do you have on the roof. So now, if you lived in a house, you built the house, and there's only one layer up there, you don't need to do a tear off. We could go right over that layer, okay? Because you could have up to 2 layers of roof on your 2 layers of shingle on your roof. Okay, so that's important to know because some contractors say, "Oh, you need to tear everything off." You don't need to tear everything off, as long as you go underneath and you look in your attic and you see there's no leaks. There's no leaks there. You don't need to tear the shingle off if you have one layer. If you have one layer, then we could go right over it with the new layer, and then generally the rule of thumb is you get between 30 and 50 years, depending on what shingle we give you. So we can give you, we carry three different types of shingles. We do GAF, we do Timberline, we do Tamco, and I also do something called IKO, which I love because that's the best bang for the buck. It's not the name shingle, but it's a very heavy 3-ply high definition shingle that's going to get you 50 years. So that's what we use a lot of. But of course, there's people that like the name. They want to go with JF. They want to go with Timberline. Now, if you are doing a tear off, if you are going to do a tear off, the shingles all got to come off. Paper's got to come off. Then we get down to the underlayment. And then when we get down to the underlayment, then we want to see if the wood is spongy. If you had any leaks. If you had any leaks, then we're going to tear off the underlayment. We're going to go down with 3/4 inch plywood and then repaper it with 15 weight paper. And then along on the outskirts of the roof, we put what's called drip edge to hold the paper down. So it's nice and tight. And then we start running the shingle. And we run the shingle up to the ridge of the roof. And if you don't have a ridge vent, we'll install a ridge vent for you, because that's another area that you have to you should have either a ridge vent or an attic fan. Now the attic fan, we're going to get into that in a little bit. What's the difference between a ridge vent and an attic fan? Excuse me. The ridge vent is going to give you flow all the way through the roof, where the attic fan is just going to suck out the hot exhaust. So if you go with an attic fan, you probably would have to have two attic fans in there. If you go with the ridge vent, the ridge vent goes right down the line of the ridge of the roof, And as long as we install the baffles that go in the bays and we give you vented soffit, you're going to get airflow from the soffit all the way up to the ridge of the roof. That's the way. That's the best way to go. That's the best way to go, um, because that's the best way to go because you get more airflow that way. Versus if you go with the attic fan, you're just going to be sucking the air out. Now, Frank, when we do the roofs on the inside of the roof, when when there is mold inside there, and you're going to send your crew up there to paint, do you paint the bottom of the roof, the inside? Would you paint it by hand? Do you spray it?
I prefer to actually
Roll
roll
it.
it on there, only because when you're spraying, you're not getting as much paint on there. You're wasting a lot of paint, and then you're worried about the overspray. And we want to get the most paint on the underneath
Now,
there.
what paint do you use for that? There's a mold paint
So
there.
there's there's actually any paint that you any outside paint you can get. Sherman Williams carries it where you can. It's a mold blocker that you actually they put into the paint.
That seals it.
The
That
seals it,
seals it.
and that's
So,
what you want to do.
so what would transpire here is because Frank, we're sistering up together. So Frank would come in after we treat the mold with a chemical. We would treat it with a chemical, and then once we treat that mold with the chemical, and I would do an air sample that would check to make sure your spore count is low in the attic and there's no mold present. At that point, then Frank would come in and he would roll the ceiling, the inside part of the ceiling, with a mold encapsulation paint. That's the best way to do it. And then that would take care of the mold issue if there's any leaks inside the attic area. Getting back to the roofs, I always like when we do roofs, I always like to use a high definition 3-ply shingle because that's going to give you more bang for the buck. You're going to get at least 30 to 40 years out of that shingle where you're not going to get no nail bleeds. You're not going to get no shingles, are going to rip or anything. And, that brings us to another thing. When you're getting a roof installed, whoever's installing the roof, you want to make sure because you could do roofs all, especially up here in New Jersey, you could do roofs all year round. But if you're doing a roof in the middle of the winter, you want to make sure they install the shingle on a day where the sun is out. Even if it's like 20 degrees, 30 degrees, as long as the sun's out up there on the roof, the sun is gonna hit the shingle, and underneath the shingle there's some tar, and the shingle is going to warm up enough to where the shingle is going to sit on the roof. And that's what you want. You want that shingle to sit. If that shingle doesn't sit and you get, within the next, week and the shingle never sits and we get high winds, because down here at the shore we get high winds, there's a very good chance that the wind will get underneath it and rip the whole roof off. That has happened in the past. So every time we do roofs, I make sure we're going to install that shingle on a day where it's pretty the sun's pretty bright. It's not cloudy or no sun at all. Um, Wanted to talk about baffles on the inside of the roof. Inside the roof area in the attic area, it's very important to have baffles installed. That makes the roof breathe. Now, there's something called when the roof starts to sweat. That's because there's no air movement in the attic. If the roof starts to sweat, your shingles will decay from within, from underneath. So it's very important that when you do get a new roof installed, you make sure that the contractor puts baffles in your base that goes up to the ridge vent, and make sure that the soffit is vented. So they got to use vented soffit, so the air can go through the vent up through the baffles to the ridge. That's very important when you're installing a roof. Um, Another thing that is very important when they're doing roofs is you want to make sure they use at least a 15 weight paper. There's 15, there's 30 weight paper, and sometimes they use ice and water shield. The ice and water shield should only be used if you're using it in a valley, if you're using it around the base of the roof. After you put the drip edge on, you put the paper, the drip edge, then you want to put some ice and water shield, they could do that. But to do the whole roof in ice and water shield is overkill. I don't recommend that. I just recommend on the outskirts, and then as long as you have 15 weight paper or 30 weight paper, then they can start laying the shingle. Um,
What's the warranty though, Jimmy?
the warranty on the shingle, very good question, Frank. Warranty on the shingles, all warranties on shingles go between 30 and 50 years. 30 and 50 years. Most of the time you get 30-year shingle, but there is a 50-year shingle. And, the 50-year shingle is, if you're going to do the roof, that's the way to go because it's a heavier shingle. It's a 3-ply high definition, and that's the way to go. Um, yeah. So Frank, um,
So how many shingles is the max that you can actually put on a roof?
you could put 2 layers of shingle. Any more than that, it's got to come off. It's got to get stripped down. You could only put 2 layers of shingle. If there's one, you can go over top. If there's two, you have to. It has to get ripped off. Now that's the rule of thumb. Don't ever let anybody talk you into putting 3 layers of shingle on because it's just not going to work.
And I have seen that myself, and I've been like, wow, it's like they're putting a band-aid on it.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, when you do something, you have to do it the right way. And if there's 1 layer, we can go with two. But if there's two, it's got to come off, and you got to do a tear off. And then when we do the tear off, then you got to go down to the underlayment and make sure the underlayment, if there's any sponge in that underlayment, it's got to be replaced, and it's got to be all new plywood in there, and preferably three quarter inch plywood. So if anybody does walk on the roof, it's going to be sturdy enough to hold them.
Okay. So
So you have any questions, Frank?
yeah. So now, how long will it take from start to finish if somebody decide they want to get a roof?
All right, that's a very good question, Frank. Rule of thumb: when you're doing a roof, basically, if you're going to do a tear off, you're probably looking at about 5 days, because it takes a day to tear everything off, and then a day to get all the prep work done. For underlayment. If you're going to put all new plywood on there, and then once you get the plywood on, we got to paper it, throw the drip edge on, throw some ice and water shield in in the valleys or anywhere on the outskirts of the roof where the drip edge is. And that's basically it's got it. So it's just prep work, as far as getting everything ready to go before you even start laying the shingle. So rule of thumb, it usually takes between 4 and 5 days, and of course it depends on how big the roof is. If you're looking at 16 square, 20 square, 25 square, 30 square, that if there's a 412 pitch, 612 pitch, 812 pitch, 1212 pitch, that makes a difference on how long it takes to do the roof.
Okay, so I actually have another question because I do a lot of work down the shore, the Ocean City, the Margate, the Longports. Is there a difference of what material that you would use versus off the shore?
Well, the shingle, we actually use the same shingle on the shore that we do offshore because I don't put anything on the roof that is not like high definition 3-ply. 3-ply high definition is the heaviest shingle you're going to get. So you actually could use that anywhere. I use it along the shore. I use it on inland. But we use it in the mountains, anywhere. So to answer your question, we use the same shingle, just different companies.
Okay.
Oh, because we use a heavy shingle.
And I guess the only other question, the big question that I have is because I've had about is there a difference between the ridge ramp? Because I've seen them now, the new ones, where it's my roof. They actually put it right in it. It wasn't in the middle. It was more like in the other part of it. It was like almost down more. I've never seen that.
Well, sometimes they do move the ridge vent down. It all depends on where the roof is meeting. So if you have like 2 or 3 different roofs, say you have a lower roof that's going to go up to another roof and then go up to the top. So excuse me. So what they could do is put a ridge vent where the lower roof meets the mid roof, and then another ridge vent where the top roof is. That's normally what they do, or they could do that. Now, but I look and see, if we have airflow going from the soffit right up to ridge vent. So I like to put the ridge vent dead in the middle of the peak of the roof, and I do that if we have good airflow from the soffit through the baffles all the way up to the ridge. Now, if we don't have that because of the different roofs, then yeah, we'll add more than one ridge vent and we'll throw a couple.
Okay, so the question that I have is that how would we, if just assume, nobody really knows much about roofs, and you have your house and you want to make sure that you're getting plenty of ventilation, what would be the best way for them to check in their crawl space if there's airflow?
Airflow in the crawl
And
space
no, in the
in the attic.
in the attic.
Okay. Well, the best way to check for airflow is, first off, you look at your soffit and you see if your soffit is closed. So you look at the soffit. If the soffit they have vented soffit up there. In other words, there's holes in the soffit. Then you got air going in. That's number one. Then number two, you peek your head in the attic and you look up there and you see if there's any baffles in the bays. If there's no baffles in the bays and all you see is insulation up there in the bays, you have no airflow going to the ridge vent of your roof. So that means your roof is not breathing. If that roof is not getting any air, it's not breathing. It's going to sweat. We call it sweat. The roof is sweating. If the roof starts to sweat, then your shingles are going to decay from underneath, from the heat of the wood is going to create moisture through the paper into the shingle, and then the moisture is going to decay the shingle over time. That's why it's very important.
So another thing is I noticed I went up there. Actually, I just did it maybe 2 months ago. I went up into my attic, the steps down, walked up, and I left the light off, and I could see light, but I only see light coming through on my left side and not on my right side, and so I wonder why that is.
Where's the light coming in at?
It's coming from the where the roof is, on the back part of it. I can see the light coming through.
Right.
Okay, and then not on the other side of the
Roof.
yeah, the other side of the roof.
Well, that tells me right there that they must have closed the one side up with drip edge, and maybe the other side they didn't do it. So
it really
that's
does help with the light off.
yes,
Because then you can see the light coming, the
yes,
natural light coming
yeah,
through.
yes, right. If you don't turn the light on right away, like Frank's saying, you could see if there's any light coming in from anywhere, if there's any openings, and if they don't do the same thing all the way around the roof, when they're putting in the drip edge, some areas, if they just put it in some areas and they'll put it in other areas, you're going to have like a little gap where you can see light coming through, underneath the roof, and that's what Frank is referring to. So just before you turn the light on, when you look in your attic, just leave it off and look around, see if you see any light coming through. Then that's where you could tell if it needs to be closed up.
So I guess so. We do know already about the maximum is 2 layers, but when we'll get to a point where we're like, okay, it doesn't. You really need a full rip off at this point. We've already went through all the steps, and now we're at a point where it ain't about shingles now.
Well, where like if you have 2 layers up there and you start seeing shingles blow off, you start seeing nail bleeds where the water's running down the roof and the water's getting to the nail underneath the shingle, and it's leading like a color on your roof. That means your shingles are getting ready to go. You got maybe 2-3 years left of the shingle. That's when you need to tear the roof off, put in new shingles.
Okay, so I guess one of the other big things I know assumers is going to want to know, how many estimates do you think you should get to know that you're getting it? And it's not always about, and believe me, it's not all about the cheapest, but knowing that you're going to get the best quality of company that comes in and does it. It's not always about money.
It's not always about money, but you always, no matter what you do, you always want to get 3 estimates. You always want to get at least 3 estimates. If you could get four, you get four. You get five, you get five. The more, the better. This way, you get a good idea because normally the guys that are doing things right, they're going to be pretty close. Because when you add up, like I always say, numbers, labor and numbers don't lie. People do. So, in other words, what I'm saying, what I mean by that is when I add up the labor, what it's going to cost to do the job, and then I add up the material, then it comes down to on how much I need to make as a contractor. That if it's going to take us 1 week and my guys are going to be there 1 week, how much I need to make for that week to be there. Then that's what separates the contractor. Some guys are happy making okay money. Some guys aren't, and that's where the difference in the price comes in. So it's always good to find out when you're looking, to do a roof and you're interviewing contractors, you're taking estimates. Number one, what material they're going to use. Number two, what scope of work they're going to do for you. Guy comes in the same price, $8,000. Say he's giving you the same shingle, but he's not tearing it off. He's going over the one that you have up there. The other guy comes back and says, "I'm going to do it for 8,000." He's giving you the same shingle and he's tearing everything off. Of course, you're going to use the guy that's tearing everything off because he's giving you a brand new roof. He's giving you a brand new roof for the same price that the other guy doesn't want to tear nothing off and just wants to go over the layer that's there. So that's basically why you should get 5 estimates.
Right, and it brings us to another point: is where the weather has a big when we're going to do the roof. And I've seen people that started a roof. They had to see the weather in the next 2 days could be raining, and then they decide, it's my opinion, I would wait until I make sure I get a couple days.
Well, the weather has a big part in it, but I've been in the business now over 30 years now, so basically we do roofs no matter what. I mean, if it's a torrential downpour, then of course we're not going to start a roof. But if we start a roof and we always make sure we don't put ourselves in a position where we're going to get hurt. So in other words, for example, if we're doing a roof, we do one half one day and then the other half the next day. So we tear one half off and we make sure we tear it off. We get that tore off, and then we get it papered and we start shingling. If we get rained out as we're shingling, then we get the tarp out. We tarp it up and lay it right over the ridge of the other roof that we didn't touch yet.
That was one of my other questions. So you're going to make sure you secure the tarp.
We secure
on
the
that side, and you're not doing the whole rip off.
Right now,
it's one at a
it's
time.
one at a time. Roofs, you have to be very careful with roofs. If you tear the whole roof off and you get, the sky opens up on you, now you got a real big problem.
Okay, it makes sense.
Real big problem. So we just don't do that. So another thing I wanted to say to you guys, what's the difference between a ridge vent and an attic fan? The ridge vent gives you continuous flow throughout the whole roof, as long as it's done correctly. It's opened up, and rule of thumb is you want to open up 3 inches on both sides of the peak of the roof. So 3 inches on one side, 3 inches on the other side, and then we put what's called a mesh in there. We put the mesh on, and then we put the caps over top of that, and then that's how you close up the ridge vent. This way, the air can expel out. I love ridge vents because as long as you put the baffles in the bays and you open up the soffits with the vented soffits, that's the best way to go. In my opinion, that's absolutely the best way to go. Now, if you don't want to go that way, because that could be a little more costly than just adding a attic fan or one or two. Now, attic fan, how that works is that just sucks the hot air out of the attic space. Now that works. It's that's very good. It works. The only problem with that is, you set the thermostat up there for, like, say the roof has got to get to 100 degrees before that thing kicks on. Once that kicks on, it's going to suck all the hot air up. The only problem is, you got hot air up there for some period of time, where that could make the roof start to sweat before the attic fan starts to expel the hot air. So I believe the best way to go is make sure you got baffles in your bays, Make sure your soffits are vented, and put uh, a um, a roof vent in. And that's the best. I think that's the best way. This way, your roof is breathing all the time. It's breathing in the summer. It's breathing in the winter. You got air continuous flow.
So one thing I want to mention to our listeners is that I know from experience that you can always, before you go and find out if you're going to be the one that has to pay for this roof to be done on your house. You need to check to make sure that it could be covered under your insurance, because I know before I purchased before we had a house that we purchased, we had a rental property, and then a guy came along and was offering free roofs, and we found out that the roof was actually covered under the insurance.
Now,
And
why was that? Was that homeowners?
it was a homeowner's insurance, but I just think it's important that we let the consumers know that they want to check their options, because if they can get it.
Well, that's a very good point, Frank. That's a very good point. When you do want to put a new roof on, if you have some kind of damage, from a storm, if you have a tree fall and landing on the roof, damages your roof, or if you get struck by lightning, something like that, then you definitely could turn that into your homeowners, and the homeowners should pick it up. They should pick up the coverage on to replace the roof.
Yeah, I just think it's important, because I know that that was surprising to me. I'm thinking, here's just somebody come knocking on your door telling you you're going to get a free roof, and I'm thinking, no way. But it is out there. There is
Yeah,
situations
there's situations out there that you can
in
get.
certain areas that they offer this.
They offer it. There's certain situations they do offer it, and you just before you do any project, you should always check with your homeowner and see if they cover it. No matter what it is. If you have a leak in the house, if you have mold in the house. Now, I do know if it's mold that just happened. So, in other words, like say you have a leak in the roof, and you just noticed it and it's just started leaking, and you get mold within a day or two. You call your insurance company, and most of the time they'll cover it. If it's just happening, most of the time they'll cover it. If it's something that's pre-existing over time, had a leak there for 2 years, and then you call, I don't think they'll cover it.
And even if it is covered, you are able to use whatever contractor you want.
Yes, yes, yes.
It doesn't lock you into a person that they have come out and inspect it.
Whenever you turn anything into your homeowners are going to ask you to get 3 or 4 estimates. You get 3 or 4 estimates. You send it into your adjuster for your insurance company, and then they're going to tell you how much they're going to give you, and they're going to send you a check. At that point, you hire whoever you want. You're obligated to hire anybody. You pick whoever you want.
So, and for your gym as a full contractor builder, you can basically cover any of this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From roofs to windows, and we're going to talk more about other areas that we're going to bring other guests in that specializes in that you use as subs. So whatever, don't hesitate. Whatever you guys need, let Jim know, let us know, and we can do it all. It's an ideal that we actually come together. We can basically, it's a one shop. You don't have to worry about Jim, and I think this is great about us.
That's what the best thing is about Galaxy Construction One and Jersey Boys, is because we're sistering up as far as doing work together, and we cover the whole spectrum. We cover everything from A to Z. And if you guys need anything, you just call us. We have our numbers right here. You can give us a call. And every week we're gonna bring these shows to you, and we're gonna touch on different aspects of the construction every week. This week we're gonna talk about roofs. We're doing that right now, and then we're also gonna start talking about painting. It's doing some finish work. We're going to do that in this show. And then every week, it's going to be something different. And we're going to have guest speakers on every week. We do have our painter supposed to be coming in. The guy who does our finish work. He's coming in today towards the end of the show. Next week, we're going to have probably the heating and air guy. If it's not him, it'll be the electrician. But we're going to bring different aspects every week. So you guys can watch us and and learn
Definitely
from.
stay tuned in because we're not allowed to say right now, but we do have a special guest that we're bringing on that we're not allowed. It's going to be a total
It's a
surprise.
surprise.
Well known, very well known. Um, so I want to keep your suspense there. Okay, so
We're
you guys,
very, very excited about that, Frank.
yes,
Very excited.
we
We
just
have
found
a
out yesterday that the special guest is going to come on, and you guys are going to know who he is. And like I said, you got to keep tuning into us. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram.
We will let you know a
YouTube.
couple days before the show
We will.
who
gonna
it's going to
be-
be. But
We had to get their permission.
we have to make sure everything is done correctly. So, but before he comes on the show, we will let you know so you guys will know about it.
So if you guys, we're going to be here till 2 o'clock today. Okay. So come on down. Okay.
And
if you-
Frank, I want to touch a little bit on painting before
Yeah.
we go. We're going to touch a little bit on
Yeah,
painting.
but if
Yeah.
you guys are still in the area, we're going to be here. I'm just letting you know we're still going to be here and till 2 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going to be here till 2 o'clock, guys. Come on
We got
down.
pretzels. We got plenty of water ice over there.
Yeah.
And
And really, we would really like to field some questions, right, Frank?
yes.
Really like to field some questions from you guys. I mean, we do the Harry Hurley show once a month, and it's called Ask the Contractor. So you guys listen to Harry. He's on between 6 and 10 every day. You can listen to his show, and when we go there, you guys can call in. We'll answer any questions you have. But right now, if you guys have any questions, you can always email it to us. My email is jamesmassaro22@gmail.com. And Frank?
And I'm Jersey Boys 124 at gmail.com.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just email it to us, and we'll get right back to you.
And I want to say this though. Like we just said earlier, the best part about us together, Jimmy, is the fact that it's a one shop, and you would only deal with me and Jimmy. You a lot of the times, and that's unique because I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 13 years. You've been doing this for over 25 years.
Yeah, close to 30
And
years.
how
yes.
many painters have you went through?
Oh, a lot.
and-
About 15 of them.
But the good thing about it is that you would directly deal with us, and there's not a lot of builders out there today or contractors that have what we got going on here, what we're starting.
And that's what, and we're gonna touch base right now on painting also. But I just want to close with the roofing. The roofing is basically, when you do it, just follow the guidelines, and make sure whoever's going to do your roof, you get 3 to 5 estimates. Make sure when they do the roof that they have a dump trailer that they're going to take away all the shingle, and make sure they cover your shrubs up with tarp so you don't have nails and shingles falling all on your beds and your trees and stuff like that. That's very big also. And always get 3 to 5 estimates. In this way, you could kind of get an idea what a fair price is. Now, Frank, I want to touch base with painting. This is your expertise. This is your field. Frank, like I always say, I could do the best job. My crew goes in, does all the demo and all the rebuild, and we do everything. But if you don't have the right guy going in to do the finish work, and they can't cut a ceiling in, or they're dry rolling, or they don't know how to back roll, or they can't cut, trim in, it kills the whole job. So please explain how to cut a ceiling in and what's important on how to not dry roll and everything.
Jimmy, it's funny. A lot of when I turn around and see people using tape,
That tells you right there.
I just bury.
When you're hiring somebody, Frank, and you see that they can't cut the ceiling in by eye, and they're trying to use tape, what do you say?
That's it. It's not going to work for me.
It's not going to work.
First of all, you're going to be wasting labor. You're wasting materials. You should be able to cut in the ceiling, Jimmy.
You got to cut the ceiling by eye.
With your eyes closed.
Yes.
After you do it for so long, I personally have phenomenal painters that literally is laser, and you have seen that.
Yeah.
On a property.
Well, that was the first thing I saw when I walked in to check your work out when I first got with you. I used to paint myself when I started. I used to paint. I did everything myself when I first started my company. So I did every single thing. I worked with a friend of mine, so I could paint also. And to cut a ceiling in, You have to know what you're doing. It takes time to learn. You just don't do it one day. It takes repetition. You have to go over and over and over until you get the eye and you get the touch, the right touch. And then that's the next question I want to ask you. What size brush should they use when they're cutting the seal on it?
You could use a 2-inch brush.
2-inch slanted brush?
Slanted brush
there you
is,
go.
is very good brush to use. And you know, when I hire people, Jimmy, you know, their first day and I notice they don't have no tools. It's to me, it's already a red flag.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I'll tell you, and the reason why I'm saying that is,
Well,
and
they,
not only is because a real painter loves their own brush
yes.
because they got the feel of their brush.
Yes. Well, that's another thing, Frank. If you got a painter and you give him a brush, and then at the end of the day, you say, "Where's the brush?" "Oh, I threw it out."
And it started that 13 years ago, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I've had people at the end of the job. I spent $200 on brushes and
Yeah,
rollers
right.
and naps, and that you can use again if you
Over
wash
and
it.
over and over again. You could use a brush.
And I'm
or
like,
that
where's
over
it
and
at?
over. Right.
You know,
As soon as you see that, you know they don't know what they're doing.
and they're $20, $30 brushes.
Right.
So
So, basically, when you're painting, you could tell, Frank, if they know what they're doing by the way they cut a ceiling in, or if they don't use the brush over and over again. They don't wash things out when they're done. They don't wash the pan out. They don't wash the nap out. They don't wash the brush out.
So
Frank, what's the biggest thing when you're looking at it, when somebody's doing a job, especially when you're adding the color? If they dry roll, how do you make sure your guys don't dry roll when they paint?
well, not to be.
I mean, they all know not to.
But it's funny you say that. I am a stickler. I mean, and you're going to have one of my guys will be on here. My foreman will eventually be here in a couple weeks, and I go around it, and they're the holidays,
Right.
Right. But we don't have it that often because my crew really knows.
Yeah. You got to go.
If you don't have enough, and why it happens is you don't have.
What's ironic is out of every guy you got, you really don't have one weak one.
No.
And I noticed that. every guy you have, every worker that works for you is strong.
Yes.
I don't see any weaknesses.
And
that's important.
And what I find to be that works for my company, Jimmy, is the fact that I put people where they're strong, because I have certain ones that are really strong on drywall. Okay. They're great on ceilings. I'm not going to somebody that I know isn't, and they're all strong in their own area.
Right.
And that's where I use them at. And I think that's where they become so effective. And that's where I'm saying, as far as the dry roll and knowing that you need to put enough paint on there. You don't want to over paint, because that's when you get drips, Jimmy.
Exactly.
And so it's a little, exactly what you got to do.
Exactly.
And, and the priming.
Priming is the most important part.
Yeah, because what happens is a lot of the times is that you're using cheap material, because and I'm not saying this to knock any other painting company, but when I know that I go and I get very fair prices, Jimmy,
right,
and I know that and I take it personal sometimes, I stop doing it. But because I want to do it in every job.
Well, listen, that brings us to another point. When you are bidding, you always have to look as the consumer. You always have to look at, when somebody gives you a price, number one thing to look at is the material they're using. Now, Frank comes in at a price, say, for example, he's painting your house, he comes in at $5,000. That's just hypothetical. But say $5,000. But Frank's using Duration, or he's using Emerald, Sherwin-Williams paint, top of the line. He's using a Duration primer, top of the line. And he comes in at $5,000. You have another guy that comes in at $4,500. He beats Frank by $500, but he's using Bear. He's using Vaspar. I mean, not to say that they're a bad paint. They're not. They're actually a good paint, but they're not the same quality as a Sherwin-Williams Duration or Emerald. I mean, it's not. It's like it's like an apple and an orange. It's like two different entities. It's two different things. It's not even close. The Sherwin-Williams, and I believe, he believes this. We have the same philosophy. Use the best material.
Yes.
Do it one and done. One and done. You know, when you got to go back because you use a cheaper paint and you put it on the wall, and 6 months later, one of their kids rub against the wall and the paint comes off. Now you got to go back and touch it up. You put a heavy duty paint on like a Duration or Emerald, nothing, and it's not moving.
And you
Right,
know,
Frank?
and you know, Jim, that goes hand in hand, because you know what? If you do get a price that is high, okay, and you're looking at the contract, because the contractors state everything that any painting company or any contractor is going to do. And I think that the consumers need to make sure that they really pay attention what's on there. For me, all my contracts are going to have every material that I'm going to use. Okay, it's going to be written there. If it's and if you want, and it gives you an option if you want to even go better. Okay, there's a little bit of a cost difference. Okay, but I put a warranty. I always actually give an extra year labor warranty on my
Well,
work.
in the state of New Jersey only requires 1 year for 1 year warranty for workmanship.
Yes.
Now, you do get an extra warranty for the material, so it all depends on what material is being used on the job.
Well, yeah, like
So,
Sherman, like if you're getting a Sherman Williams or whatever, they have their own warranty. But what I'm saying is that I actually give my customers an extra year, as long as it ain't, someone that did the damage. They bumped it themselves, or their kids ran into it, or their guests, messed up. But if it was something that we missed, or it was because of something failed paint, we would come back and fix it,
correct.
without a doubt. So and another point I want to make is that, going back to the primer, okay, if you do not get a good primer, okay, on those walls, okay, and still two coats after that, okay, and yes, you might be paying a little bit more money, but guess what? Would you rather have, you don't have to paint for the next 10 years, or you're going to be doing it every couple of years? That's the difference. I know everybody has a budget, Jimmy.
Well, when you're getting a price as a consumer, you always want to make sure that in the contract it states that they're going to put 1 to 2 coats of primer on the wall. Now, it does necessarily, you don't have to get 2 coats of primer. You could get 1 coat of primer if they're using a good primer.
Absolutely.
If they're using a Duration primer, 1 coat is good. If they're using a cheap primer, you get over out of some type of utility store that is no name, like just maintenance paint. Then you got to put 2 coats, and that sets the whole job up. Because like I said before, you could go over, if you got a brown on the wall and you want to go over with a yellow. As long as you put a good primer over it, you could go right over that brown with a yellow and it won't bleed through. But if you don't use that primer, it's going to bleed through. Bottom line. Right, Frank?
Absolutely. So it's all about the materials. It's all about the paint that you want to use. I highly recommend. I always tell all my customers, just do it right. I'm actually in Ocean City right now, doing a job where there's, right on the beach. Okay, and they have flat paint. Well, they had some mold in the garage. Doesn't surprise me, because I would not put flat paint, Jimmy.
Right.
And as a builder, you can correct me if I'm wrong. In the garage, when with the
With the moisture, with all the moisture.
right? So I told him to go with eggshell.
Right.
We fixed the problem. It wasn't. We caught it in time, but it could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
But we're not going to put flat back on that wall.
No. Normally, if there is any areas that are like subject to moisture, like garage, like the garage, or if you got a crawl space, any type of area where there's moisture, there's normally, most of the time, and I know Frank does it. You would go with a paint that has a mold preventer in it.
Yes.
Okay, there's paint that has a mold preventer in it. Not the one that we use for encapsulation, but the one that has a preventer where the mold won't grow. No growth will start.
Yes.
Right, Frank?
Absolutely. And actually, that's what we're doing a lot in Ocean City. Like I said, they, unfortunately, they get high tides and those houses so close.
Well, you never know when it's going to flood.
And if they're
Could
not
flood.
at that elevation that they were supposed to be, because they're sistered into where they didn't have
Ocean
to.
City, you can have 2-3 feet of water in the
Absolutely,
streets,
in a second.
anytime. So you're going to have water in your crawl space. You definitely got water there.
But that's what I recommend that we do.
Yeah.
As far as
So, Frank, let me ask you another question. This is the very big part. When you're doing painting, okay. Now I know this because I know how you do your work, but if for the consumer, if somebody's painting in their house, should somebody be rolling the ceilings and not have no tarps on the
no,
floor?
absolutely not. Everything should be
Because you
covered.
hear some guy say, "I'm so good, I don't need a tarp."
No,
You're
that's
going to have spray no
no,
matter what.
no. Let me
There's
tell
going to
you,
be spray.
paint paint finds everything,
Everything.
even with the best protection.
Right. You got it.
Okay,
It's yeah. So that's what brings us back to the prep work before
the
you
prep
start
work is
painting.
the most important. What I'm doing, especially I've been doing a lot in the last 2 years. A lot is actually giving myself a full day of prep.
Now, Frank, do you have your guys take the outlets off, or
Yeah,
do you have, or do? Because I know there's some painters try to cut around the outlets.
well, yeah, they're
Now, do you guys cut
every
around the outlets? You take the outlets off.
they're off.
That's the
Outlet covers
best
are
way to do it.
outlet covers are coming off. Even the air vents in the ceiling, we take them out.
Right,
We pull the lights down.
right.
Okay,
That's the way to do
you
it.
know,
Any hi hats, you
and
drop
high
them
hats,
down.
we're dropping them down. They're really easy, by the way. It's just a clip. You pull them down, they're hanging there. Um, you know, we try we try to do all the prep. I tell my guys, listen, there's no rush. Half a day, even if it takes a full day, that decides on the house. Okay, that we want to make sure that the prep is done, and it's key,
Prep,
especially with
prep,
the floors.
the prep is the most important thing.
And
Frank, how do you cut the trim in? That's another fallacy. How do we cut the trim in? With the semi gloss, and then the color. Do you cut the color first, then the semi gloss,
when I
or
so when I'm doing the ceiling,
right,
okay, I like to do the ceiling first.
right?
Okay, the white first, and then
You
we
do the
put
flat
color
on the ceiling,
flat on the ceiling
color on
first,
the walls,
and then
and then the trim
the
is
trim's
semi
last.
gloss and doors semi gloss.
Okay,
But my question to you is, when you get the color on the walls, do you bring the color down to the trim and then cut your semi, or do you leave it a little bit, cut the semi, and then cut it with the color?
yeah, we cut. Yeah, we'll do the walls. Like I said here, there's some people that might be different, but we complete the walls and then we do our trim. My guys are
Okay,
so. I
gotcha.
mean, they just
That's
cut.
that's a big thing. That's a big
Yeah,
question
I
right
mean,
there, because that's a very. I mean, the whole job. If you can't cut the ceiling in and you can't cut the trim in, it kills the whole job.
no, you're just making more work, and
It make yeah.
we take the wall paint, Jimmy, to answer your question, all the way down to where we need to, and we're cutting that laser, and I mean laser, trim in
Right in.
right
Yeah.
in, and you've seen
You
it.
gotta have good. You gotta have a steady hand,
You got
and you
to.
gotta have years of experience, and then you're able to do it.
New instruction's a little bit different, um, because basically you could get you're priming your walls, you're doing your ceilings, literally, um, you can, if the trim's already up, and a lot of times it is, we caulk putty and we can spray all the trim indoors because there's no floor in
Well,
there.
Frank, if we're doing new build, your primer, you could spray the ceiling,
You can spray everything,
spray everything.
everything.
Then you cut the color in. You
Yeah,
roll it. You roll the
right.
color.
Yeah,
That's the way it's done. New build.
right.
It's very good to do spray when you're doing new build, because you're putting the primer on, and as long as you prep the windows with the plastic real good, then you just spray everything real heavy, and then you can go back and give it another coat, let that dry, and then you come back and cut your color into the walls, and then bring it right down to the trim, and then you cut your semi gloss in. That really works when we're doing new build.
Absolutely.
But when
Um,
you're doing residential and it's rehab,
it's
it's
rehab.
not done that way. You can't really spray.
You don't
right?
have the option of, because you've already got the floor down.
Right, right.
And
It's
you
too
know,
much. It's too much the setup for spray. Right?
yeah, you can. Yeah, I'm not a big sprayer unless it's a new instruction.
New construction.
And even outside, the houses are so close. I find that it's a waste of paint. Okay. Yes, it's faster. Yes, and if you prep everything, but you're taking a risk of overspray.
Taking
You're
a
not
risk.
getting as much on the
Right,
house that you should be.
right.
Um,
Well, if you're spraying outside, you got wind involved,
you got wind. That's right.
and then you're not going to get as much on the house, and you're going
you
to,
know, and,
and then you got a chance of
and
going everywhere.
so we're listen. We've done some big houses. Actually, we're getting ready to do a church. that's all going to be free. It's going to be free-handed. We're going to roll, but I'll tell you what, they're going to get the best paint and they're going to get the best job, and because we're going to be able to get the quality, the amount of paint that you need to be on there to hold up for them.
When you roll it, no matter when you roll it, you're going to get a better product.
Absolutely.
Rolling it is definitely a better product. The only benefit for spraying would be new build, or if you're outside and there's not a windy day and you're spraying, say, vinyl or something like that, then spraying is good. But most of the time, if if it's if the situation is not ideal for spraying, then you always want to roll.
And the spraying for new builds, Jim, you could even jump in there. For new construction is because a lot of the times we're just putting they're only paying at that moment for the primer.
Right.
Okay. And then they decide to do the cover, later on, or maybe, but your job as a builder is get the primer on the ceilings, the walls, and get them set up. And if they want to do an add-on, right, Jim, you can
Right.
talk about
Well,
that.
that brings us to another point that when we're doing it could be renovation, it could be new build. There's a lot of different colors that you as a consumer might want. If you're doing vinyl siding, there's only 3 or 4 colors, per company that you could pick from. So don't let that deter you from the color that you really want. Now, if you really do want a certain color, and say it's vinyl siding, or it's say it's composite siding,
Absolutely.
and we can either spray it or roll it. It all depends on the situation. If it's if we could spray it, if not, we would roll it. And if it's a wood grain, like a vinyl siding wood grain, then we probably would want to roll it, hand paint it. This way, the paint gets in the wood grain and it really sits good. But don't let that deter you on when you want to change the color of your siding. If you want to change the color of siding, best way to go is whatever we're going to put on. We go with white, and then you pick the color you want. We can paint it any color you want.
Yes, I want to make this remark for any contractor, painter that might be listening in. I am not saying that spraying is bad. I'm just saying for Jersey boys, we prefer to roll freehand.
Right.
And that's just the way that I've been. But there is times where spraying is very good. If the house really is far away, and and we can get it done safely, I'm always thinking of the other person's house or the other person's vehicle and the weather, because the weather's so up and down that it's just better for me
As a painter, yeah.
as a painter. It's
As a painter.
less liability, and plus I feel like the paint, putting the paint on with a roller or a brush, you just get more on there. So I'm not
And you have
knocking,
less waste.
and I'm right, and I'm not knocking anybody out there that uses spray. Spray is good for a lot of situations, but just not for.
Yeah, as a consumer, you just make sure if the contractor says that they're going to spray it, you just make sure when they spray it that they're not spraying on a day that's very windy, or if it's real cold out. Say it's like 32 degrees. You don't want them to spray it, because what happens when you start spraying paint it, when it's below like 52 degrees, and you start spraying it, the paint clogs up in the line and starts spitting out like lumps of paint. So it's not good to spray when it's a certain temperature.
I'm actually glad you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is a very good thing that you just said about temperature. Okay, if you guys can Google this, okay, you can fact check me right now. Okay, over 85 degrees, you should not be painting outside. Okay, you can Google, you can fact check me on this one. Um, it's a little too hot for painting outside. You want to wait till the temperature goes down at least lower than 85.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's so if you ever hear a painter say it's too hot outside, believe them. Okay, because you don't want to the paint just doesn't, it dries too fast. Okay.
Oh yeah. When it's real
Um,
dry like that,
and it's just
the
drying
paint
too
dries real
fast,
fast.
and it's you got there's a lot of issues, but there's more. That's another time.
Yeah.
But there's more. But just Google it. You can check it out, and but yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'd like to touch on this before we end this show. Again, as a consumer, if you missed any of our podcasts, when you're getting ready to sign a contract, always make sure the company's name is on the top, the letterhead, their license number. They give you a start date, a finish date. You sign, they sign, you date it. A 3-day right to rescind. A clause in there if there's only going to be any delays, if they're not going to be able to meet the finish date, a reason why they're not going to meet the finish date. Like, for example, on my contract, I have delays for material, inspections, weather. They're the three biggest ones. And then always you want to be able to, on that contract, you want to make sure they give you a 3-day right to rescind. That's very important. You have to have a 3-day right to rescind from the moment you sign and give them a deposit and you consummate the contract. You have 3 days to change your mind. After the third day, then you're locked in, and the contractor's locked in, and they're locked into the scope of the work, and then they have to fulfill the contract. Always make sure that the contractor you're doing work with gives you his name, his address, his phone number, his license number, and then also when they do hand you the contract and you sign it, they should either staple onto the contract their license and their insurance, or they can either email it over to you. I have done that, email to the customer, and then also before you hire anybody, always get at least 3 references. 3 references will tell you what that company's about. And they can get 3
And they
people.
should have no problem giving that to you.
Well, yeah, if they're legitimate and they're doing good work.
Because for,
Three-
for me, when people ask
references
me,
is nothing,
I have references from here,
Yeah,
West Florida.
somebody asked me for a reference. They said, "Give me 3 references." I sent them like 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we do good work and we stand by our work. And when you do that, you have no problem with references. So if somebody has a problem giving you references, or just ignores you when you ask for a reference, that's a red flag right there.
Absolutely.
So that's why you always ask for the references.
And I want to say something to this, because I know, Jimmy, you just ran into this problem, and I just think it's important. You just did a job where somebody didn't know that what was in the contract. I think it's very important that we make sure, as assumers, that you really read your contract. Okay, you can trust the contractor so much, but make sure that you read everything. And it's not that they're trying to do anything to you, because you might think that they were going to do a certain thing on the job, and you're like, wow, I thought, no, it wasn't on there. You just did something.
I ran into that problem. You have to make sure as a consumer, you always want to look at the scope of work that they're telling you they're going to do, and you want to look at the material they're telling you you're going to use. And then you want to make sure you got a start date and a finish date, because that's very important. You want to know when they're coming, and you want to know when they're going to get done. That they're like the most important things on a contract.
Absolutely.
You have to as a consumer, that's how you protect yourself. And like I always told you guys before, if you're going to hire a guy, it won't hurt for you to call the Better Business Bureau and check them to see what their rating is. And you can also call the Consumer Affairs Office in Trenton, and you can Google that number, pops right up, and ask if there's any blemishes against the company. They'll tell you. That's how you protect yourself as a consumer.
That the one thing I want to touch on is the fact that we don't get it. It's a shame for us, Jimmy. I'll say this, for contractors, because people are the first to go out there and give a bad review when they're not happy. But you can do 50, 100 jobs in a year,
Right.
okay,
Right.
and can't get them to give a review. So where I'm going on this is that one person that it feels that you could have bent over backwards for them, Jimmy.
I know where you're going. I know what you're saying. What Frank is getting at here is you want to look at reviews, and if there is one bad review on somebody, you want to look and see how many are bad reviews.
Yeah.
If there's one bad review and they got 50 ratings and there's only one, they're a good company.
Yeah.
They're a good company, because no matter what, there's always going to be somebody there that's not happy with something. So you have to look as a consumer, you have to look and see how many bad reviews they have. If they have 10 ratings and 7 bad reviews, they're bad.
Yeah.
If they got 10 ratings and they got 1 bad review, they're good. That's what you have to look for.
But I and to go on the flip side of that, Jamie. But I also think it's important that we get knowledge. You know, um, people take that extra couple of minutes when we give them not only a great price,
Right.
a great job. Take those couple of minutes, okay? Because we're all in here to work together.
Right. Well, that's
Give a
the whole
quick
thing.
review.
Well, yeah, right.
Because if of all the great jobs that I have done as a company, and I'm sure you have, okay, I would have a lot more. But what I'm saying is, It's easier for somebody to give you a bad review than they give you a good review.
Well, the bottom line
You're
is
going to give a bad review when
you're going to have
Yeah.
good, you're going to have good, you're going to have bad. All right. Most of the time, I know Frank's like me. I have went back on jobs 15 times to make the
Yes.
customer happy. I
And I
know
still-
Frank does the same
And that's
thing.
where my frustration, and I'm sure a lot of contractors feel the same way that we're talking right now, is that you can go bend over backwards for a customer, and still, and then they say they're so happy they'll give you a text, great job, and I can show you many of them on my phone, but still have not taken those extra couple of minutes and just put a review on for me.
You basically, like what Frank is getting at here. Basically, you just have to look at how many bad reviews are, if they have 20 ratings, how many bad reviews you got? 30 ratings, how many bad reviews? That's basically what he's getting at. Now, I want to, before we get going here, because we're getting ready to conclude this. We got the toolbox tip of the day today, Frank. The toolbox tips of the day is, and this happens. I hear this all the time from a lot of consumers. My toilet keeps running, and I don't know how to shut it off, and I got to call a plumber. And every time I do that, they want $150 just to come out. Sometimes you have to call a plumber. Sometimes you got to call the plumber no matter what because you can't handle it. But something like this, when your toilet keeps running, when you flush it, very simple fix. This is the toolbox tip of the day. What you do, number one, you shut the water off behind the toilet. Then you flush your toilet, empty the bowl. Then you lift the lid up on the back of the reservoir. There's a flap back there with a chain. Take that off. You go over to Lowe's and you match it up. They have the kit right there, or Home Depot. You match the kit up. You buy a new flap with a chain. You go back to your house, you install it, and you have to put the chain on the hook. And then at that point, you turn your water back on for the toilet. You let the bowl fill back up, and then you flush it. It should flush and then close. What happens a lot of times with that is the rubber on the flap gets brittle and hard. When that happens, it won't seal. It won't seal the hole, and it'll just keep running. The water will leak. It'll keep running. So it's a very easy fix. You don't need to call a plumber. You can fix that yourself. And that is the toolbox tip of the day coming from Galaxy Construction in Jersey, boys, at the world famous Capri restaurant in Northville. Now, Frank, I think it's time for us to start eating. What do you think?
Yeah. Just don't forget, you guys can still come down. We're going to be here till 2:00.
Come on down, everybody. Here, he's waiting for everybody. We got all kinds of food. We're getting ready to eat.
You want to introduce to Rocco? Maybe we bring Rocco over.
I'm gonna bring Rocco real quick. Rock, you want to come in real quick?
My pleasure.
Rocco,
This is the owner.
what we have today. This is the owner of Capri, the world famous.
Well, I am the owner of Capri Pizza and Grill. I've been here with 50 years, 37 years in Shoremo, 30 years in Northville. And we are a pizza restaurant. Great food, great pizza. And I'm happy to have the Jersey Boys Construction Company doing a podcast from here.
I just want to add one thing to you guys. I'm Italian. My mom and dad are from Italy. I'm 100%. And if you're Italian, you know what the Italian food's supposed to taste like. And Rocco, his food is the way it's supposed to taste. He was born in Italy. He came from Naples. He learned how to cook in Naples. His food, excuse me, is the way it's supposed to taste. So come on down, everybody. Come on down and le mangiare. In Italian, that means let's all eat. Thank you very much, guys.
That would do it right.
That's it, Rock.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
That was good, right, Jimmy?